A warm welcome to all of you to the Inclusive Digital Economy stream, where we will discuss the topic where do technology and the digital economy meets. My name is Fahad Shabab, and I am a subject matter expert on inclusive digital economy. With me is our guest speaker, Mr. Fiacre Mushimire. Before I introduce my guest speaker, I would like to tell you about the housekeeping rules. So we will have a 20-minute presentation, and then it will be followed up by a question answer session. So you are encouraged to use the platform to post your questions. So welcome, Mr. Fiacre. Mr. Fiacre is currently working for Cenfri, a Cape Town-based think tank, as digital transformation policy lead. Before joining Cenfri, Fiacre served as Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority Senior Manager in charge of technology innovation. He has been involved in establishment of regulatory framework for smooth integration of emerging technologies, promotion of innovation through regulations that encourage local innovation and new business models with the ability to lead them on the Rwandan market. So I would like to invite Mr. Fiacre to start his presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fahad. It's a pleasure, and greeting to everyone. I'm honored to be a guest speaker at this event, and I'm really looking forward to all the questions that you can ask. So wanted to encourage everyone to ask their questions. So if you give me a second, I'll share my screen and we can get started. Yes, so yeah, give me a second and sorry. There you go. So can you confirm if you can see the slide deck, please, Fahad?
Yes, you can start.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, as Fahad introduced, I'll be discussing about a topic about where the digital and technology meets, and I wanted basically to start by giving a slight definition. So, by definition, the digital economy relies on the incorporation and use of information technology, and of that, influences the balance of consumptions and productions. So, by default, technology and the digital economy have already met, and it can't just be that. Actually, is this the end of my presentation then? Because the two have already met, and I wanted to argue that the two, technology and the digital economy, actually meet at the intersections below. I want to argue that they meet at any point where data is created. They meet at any single point where there's digital devices. They meet at the intersections of having infrastructure that enables connectivity, and it meets with security and privacy. And my last point is going to be about inclusion. So I'll start primarily with this data. Data is a trope now that is going around the industry. The data is the new gold. The key question here to ask is, whose gold? It is true, it is extremely variable, but who is it benefiting the most? Is it benefiting the participants in the digital economy, the users? Is it benefiting the companies, especially the mega corporations? Or is it benefiting the governments? So I want to argue especially about the idea that for policymakers and for businesses, we have a golden opportunity for the first time to be able to take decisions to improve the efficiency of our operations using the data that is available, that data that is generated. So the data-driven decision-making is really the work that we're doing right now in Rwanda, which is a partnership that we struck with the government of Rwanda and funded by the MasterCard Foundation. And the aim here is to use the data that is available in the public domain and in the private domain to inform government policy decisions. On the data intersection, I also wanted to highlight that this new data economy that basically has emerged out of thin air. Suddenly, the largest companies in the world don't need to have any particular services. We have the saying that goes, the largest hotel in the world doesn't have any room, Airbnb. The largest transport company in the world doesn't own any transport vehicles, Uber. So this economy has simply emerged out of the availability of data. Data enables these companies to link consumers to service providers. But at the end of the day, it is data that is the core. It is data that is enabling this economy to work. I also want to discuss about issues of are we consumers or producers of data? As users, we find ourselves with all these gadgets. You know, we go on social media, we post. For us, we're just producing data. But at the end of the day, what is the value that we're getting out of? It feels good when you go and you text your friends on a particular social media. But the person that owns the platform is using this information to target you with advertisement, to teach its machines to learn patterns of consumptions of users, to find your social networks, to understand how much you're influential. So the data has another aspect of it, which is that we're being milked out of data, but what are we getting in return, especially as users? So are we just consuming data, or are we just producing it? And then if we are consuming it, what are we paying? You know, what is the value that we're getting out of it? And when it's milked out of us, what is the value that also we're getting out of it? So since data is the new gold, why aren't we being paid for our data? Because this would not be applicable if we found oil in a particular country on your land. You would not be like, oh, we found oil here, now it's ours. We would request something in return. So this leads me to my next item on this data intersection, which is about the ownership. Who owns this data? When I produce information about me on a particular electronic platform, who is the owner of this information? I know that the company is using it to sell me stuff, but should I have some dividend? Because this is my information. Are they just holding it because the technology doesn't allow me to store it on my own device yet? So we do not have clear mechanisms in understanding about the ownership of data that is often produced by us on some of these electronic platforms. And eventually, as we said, this is where the new economy is headed. We need to understand this intersection much better, and we need to help define the values for our citizens. And I also get to the item of monetization. This data is being monetized on a daily basis. So whom is it benefiting? Is it benefiting our communities? Is it benefiting our states? Is it benefiting a specific group of individuals that are getting richer and richer on top of this resource that they're mining out of us? And lastly, whenever we talk about data, we also have to discuss issues of privacy. Where is the limit? When you willingly provide all your information to a particular platform, and then you claim, you know, this is my privacy, but at the end of the day, you're giving them everything. You haven't read the terms of reference. And yeah, so this is also another key interaction between the digital and the economy now that we need to start understanding. What are the limitations of this? Because at the end of the day, we are willingly providing this information. And then at the end of this, and then we also claim, hey, we want to be protected. So we need to define a clear line of what is it that I'm providing, how can it be used, and do I get to have a say in the use of my data? My next intersection is specifically on the devices themselves. So as much as we discuss about data does not produce itself. We need electronic devices that enable us to create this data. And I wanted to argue that, especially in our context, especially in Rwanda and overall on the continent and in the developing world, the smartphone has become the de facto tool to generate information, to consume data, but also to produce data. Applications, information based on location, payment, social media, e-commerce, e-government, all are these services that we're all accessing on top of our smartphones. Unfortunately, in the developing world, these devices are not available for everyone to purchase. And my argument was that since bringing people into the digital economy requires them to have these devices. We need to fight for mechanisms to make smartphones accessible and available to everyone. If they don't have the devices, they don't become participants in the digital economy. And eventually, technology that is supposed to become an enabler of financial inclusion, of economic development, is leaving a substantial portion of our citizens behind. And all of this is because they don't have the right devices. But even when people have devices, I want to argue that there's also another element to this that is often ignored. And this is the infrastructure. You do not get to have connectivity if you don't have electricity. Electricity is often forgotten, but the digital world does not work without electricity. And we still have a substantial amount of individuals on the continent in our countries that just don't have access to electricity. We also have then to discuss of issues around the connectivity itself. Do we have stable and available internet? You know, for example, through things like fiber, from radio communication links. How many of our people have access to cellular connectivity, you know, in forms of 4G, 5G, 6G coming? This is a very critical issue because right now, the US, the LA just phased out their 3G network. Across the entire United States, it's over, no more 3G network. But if you come on the continent, if you come in our countries, you realize that some countries haven't even gone above 2G. So what this makes us is non-participant in this digital economy that we're all discussing. You can't consume electronic goods, you can't participate in the digital economy if you are not equipped, if you don't have the right tools, if you don't have the right infrastructure. So staying behind is actually locking our own ability to participate in the global digital economy. And this is something that we need to start advocating for, both as consumers and as individuals. If we have platforms like this, we need to highlight how major of a challenge this is. It even gets worse because since they just phased out 3G, it means all the manufacturers will also stop manufacturing the 3G equipment. So with the loss of the largest global market of radio communication equipment, if they phase out 3G, when we are not ready for 4G, which by the way is also going away in a few years, because the majority of the countries have started to deploy out the 5G networks. So we are finding ourselves extremely isolated. And in the end, it does not again encourage a very large portion of our citizens to access this new, supposedly limitless global marketplace where we can all sell our services. And also I want to highlight the issue around some of our communities, depending on how remote you live, we still have services that supposedly help to alleviate some of these challenges using satellite communication. Services like Starlink, but when they launched, they actually launched to the United States. Someone decided, oh, we're going to bring over the entire world online. And instead of focusing on the area where people are actually not connected, they said like, oh, we'll start by the United States. It's good, I understand, but is it really the primary marketplace for this kind of things? Because what it does is it leaves us behind. We have an opportunity here to onboard a very large portion of our citizens that live in remote areas that are unconnected and bring them online. But even when solution providers come online, they don't see us as a market. And it is a major, major challenge. My last 2 points is the discussion that I discussed about is the security and privacy aspect. If you just came online from the traditional world, if you get your smartphone, and now you just get exposed to some new threats that you never had to face in your normal life. So we're discussing issues that are only possible, crimes that are only possible, things like identity theft. If we are not educating our citizens enough to understand that, yes, of course, there's some positives to join, this global digital economy, but also there's some risks. And the issue of creating a safe, secure ecosystem for all is going to be key, critical to the success of this. Because if you first get online and within the first, maybe you start transacting electronically, you start to pay electronically, and within the first month, someone steals your credit card, you'll not trust this thing anymore. And this is going to have huge implications on their success, since we are bringing online individuals that have been left out, and we haven't been doing a great job to educate them about the consequences of these actions. So we actually risk to even undermine them if they don't see this as a safe and secure platform. And of course, the issues of privacy. We want people's information to remain protected. We don't want people to be abused. This again becomes an even key critical issue when you consider the context in which our developing world live, with tribal issues often, and with people that can be targeted just because of who they are. So if we're bringing them online without the proper protection means, some people could actually choose to isolate themselves completely off these platforms. So my other argument that I made in the beginning was the inclusion one. As we deploy more and more digital services, how many of us are thinking about those of us who, for no fault of their own, don't have the ability to use this? I'm really thinking here people with disabilities. If we say we are all going to put these services online, what about people that can't see? What about people that can't hear if we have our systems be audio-based? What about people who, for socio-economic, political reasons, never got a chance to go to school? So are we developing our solutions understanding the context of our own people, or are we just solving a problem for people like us who were lucky to go to school, who are lucky and blessed to have their bodily functions all available and possible to them, who are able to see? So if we design solutions that only work for us, we are missing a very big opportunity of bringing on board individuals that are actually isolated. And I wanted to argue this because it is an extremely interesting area where actually technology can bring value. A very large portion of our citizens are unable to read maybe a secondary language or a third, but often when you try to find information online, it's always available in English, but maybe that's a language they don't speak. But we've seen the emergence of technologies that can help us alleviate this issue, especially through the use of artificial intelligence, for example, things like natural language processing, where we now have the ability to provide digital content to our people in a language that they can understand, with using mechanisms that they can easily access, whether it is through voice, whether it is through other forms of movement and pattern recognition. So this is an extremely important point. So I think it was my last point, the inclusion one. I wanted to highlight those intersections just for your attention. And hopefully, Fahad, I hope I kept my time. And yeah, I'm just want to encourage everyone to ask questions if anyone has some. Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Fiacre, it was an excellent presentation, and we learned a lot about the topic and how technology is shaping the digital economy. So I have one question. It is related to the key policy measures. So what is in your opinion should be the key policy measures taken by the government in order that technology does not create digital divide and it remain inclusive not only in the developed countries but also the developing countries? So this is my question. So looking forward for your answer.
Yeah, very good question, Fahad. So you're very right. I think the major changes that people need to have is a change of mind. Oftentimes, the disconnect that we find is that people who make policies assume everyone is like them. So it is a type of shift of thinking that is needed. If you and everyone else that develop these policies is not really going on the ground to find why aren't people accessing these services, often we just sit down and then we come up with like, oh, it's because they are poor, or it's because they are uneducated. But it could be a myriad of other issues. It could be an issue of capacity. It could be an issue of skills. It could. So my first key thing I would request is to actually stop using assumptions to make policy decisions. Stop thinking that this is what is happening on the ground because I think it is. We have an ability right now to look at what does the data say. What is really happening on the ground and we can take an information on this basis. And I want to give you an example here. What you can actually do, let's take an example of what we're trying to do. We're trying to use the data that is available to us to inform the cashless agenda of the government of Rwanda. They have made a very bold decision that by 2024, all services of the government are going to be online and everyone will have to pay electronically. No way around it. But we're using the information of the people that are doing these electronic transactions to understand how many of them are transacting, first of all. And then we start to realize that there are specific areas where we don't see any transaction at all. And when we went to those areas, guess what was the major reason they weren't transacting? It is not because they didn't have any money. It was because there was no connectivity in those areas. So if you want to take a decision that everyone is going to be able to transact electronically, you need to first assess, do I have the right instruments in place? Do I have the right enablers to be able to take these decisions? So my really major policy decision here would be to stop having assumptions and have a scientifically varied method of going about how we take these decisions, and really use the available data. The data is there, directly or indirectly. We now have an ability of not just doing like survey and then asking 100 people. We can actually look at how the entire market perform, and we can decide how we should transition people. Maybe we need to have a staged approach. We'll say maybe transaction will be below $1,000 will have to be digitized first, and then secondly, we give them a year to digitize transaction below $100, and so on and so on. But not just a single blanket decision that affects everyone as if everyone is on the same level. So I think to me that would be the primary shift that I would request for policymakers to have, and the information is available. My other thing is to really think like businesses do. I find it extremely sad that some of the key companies here can provide you customized services on the basis of the information that you give them, but our governments can't. So it is a very old way of thinking how we do, for example, things like social protections services. We can actually understand and target specifically people and then provide them different incentives on the basis of their needs. We don't have to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to give everyone $100 and everyone is going to be the same, because people are not on the same level of need. We can really try to help leverage the existing insights and information and understanding of the inner workings of the economy and the location, and we can try to create a leveled field for everyone. So yeah, that would be my answer. I don't know if it answers really well your question, but it would really be my first recommendation.
It's an excellent answer. I just want to add that it's all contextual, which you said, that you need to be aware as a policymaker that whom you are addressing, and you need to analyze before you implement that technology or digital economy for that matter. So there is one another question. We have 8 minutes left right now. So what is, in your opinion, how technology is helping gig workers, the remote workers, to remain competitive in digital economy? So we just wanted to know, is digital economy making life difficult for gig workers, or it is making it inclusive?
Yeah, very good question. I'm not an economist, so I just wanted to argue though that the gig economy is kind of a scam, because it is much more a tool for exploiting individuals than to really help them. It is true. You know, you have your own car, then you can be on Uber, but that is not really how it should work, because at the end of the day, you have your own car that you bought for a specific service. You're becoming an employee of someone without getting any of the social protections that come with it. So what I wanted to argue was that our countries, our nations, need to put in place mechanisms to help protect these people. At the end of the day, this platform is just linking you to the consumer, but it is taking a very big portion of the cut, and they're not subjected to any of the taxation rules. They don't have to pay for your social security. So you have to pay everything for yourself, including if you have a loan on your vehicle to pay it back. The same with any other thing. So it is not necessarily something that I would personally view as very, very good, at least in a long run, because it is a system completely created around the exploitation of specific individuals that are vulnerable. On another hand, services like online work are extremely important. As a matter of fact, in our own office, we've encouraged people to at least work from home twice a week, because it does save us a lot of money. In terms of the needed resources, we don't have to need as much room as we used to have. So definitely, I don't personally believe that this whole thing of coming back to work should be mandated anymore, because we've been able to show that for a specific group of individuals, they can continue to work and efficiently from home. However, it does raise some issues around mixing work and family, and we need to find what the line needs to be, because it will create some social problems at the end of the day. So, and again, technology is double-edged sword. So it really depends on how we define what is useful and what is the line to not cross. So if we can do this within our own corporation and have everyone put their voice in there, don't just take it as a decision as we as management have decided everyone is going to come back to the office. Ask people what works for them. If it is not affecting their output, why are you forcing them to come back to work? But on the other hand, you may want them to come because maybe in-person interactions are much more productive. So it really is a matter of defining this, and let's be democratic. Just ask people what works for them, and it should work best. So that would be my recommendation, honestly. And as I said, for the gig economy, we need to find specific regulations that work to protect individuals from being abused. But if it works well for them, and if they receive the social protections that they're supposed to be receiving, sure, I'm pro it. It gives everyone an ability to generate income. The idea is to do a balance of sheets and then check, okay, how much are you being exploited? How much are you gaining? What if we compare you with someone that is employed traditionally? Because if you have to pay for your own medical insurance, pay for your own insurance of the vehicle, pay for your own repairs, pay for your own taxes, yeah, maybe not the most positive thing, economically speaking.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fiacre. Is there any questions on the platform by our attendees? I can see one comment, very insightful, Fiacre, on how we include or exclude depending on how we design and utilize technology. So I think there is no more questions, and we have 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to ask you, Fiacre, the last concluding remarks on this topic, and then we will close this session.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fahad. And again, I wanted to encourage everyone to start asking yourselves, has technology become a tool for enabling the community in which I live? And if not, ask yourself what would be the right technology to help your community. If your needs are not communicated up, or if you have a specific, you need water, you need to advocate for you on a political level, what is the right tool that you can use? So technology is a tool at the end of the day. How we use it defines its output. So it is not a one solution to everything. However, we have an ability that is unprecedented to bring a very large portion of our citizens into the global market, the economy, not just as consumers, but as producers. So please, in whatever community you are in, ask yourself, what is a service that I can provide on this market? Else we just find ourselves as just consumers always and not producing anything. And yeah, we'll be missing out on quite a very big opportunity.
Absolutely. So I think thank you so much for such an insightful presentation and Q&A. It was a great session, and I hope that these sessions will be very informative for all the audience. And together, we as practitioners, as well as the customers and the partners which are trying to achieve UN SDG goals, especially in an inclusive manner. That is the way we need to discuss, and we need to implement our policies as well as the implementation side of it. So thank you so much, and you need to join the next session. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thank you very much, Fahad. Thanks very much, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.
Everyone. Bye.